Is it? It's done? It's live? Okay.
Yep.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Dom, Biodevil Dom, and I'm joined by a bunch of guests. Couple of guests and degenerate, but we won't get into who's the degenerate in this call. Maybe. Anyway, yeah, why don't I go ahead and introduce our guests here. First, we'll start off with our resident degenerate, Renegade Operative.
Hello. I really love the jiggle physics in this game when I noticed it in my playthrough, so if you like thumping boobs, then this is the game for you.
Yeah, see? I told y'all. Anyway, next up I got Lady Token.
Hi everybody, I'm glad to be back and talking about Tormented Souls.
Oh no. Next up we got Scared Sheep.
Hi everyone, I'm really glad to be back in my second podcast with you guys and looking forward to talking about this game.
Awesome. And then last but not least, we got our other co-host here, Brandel, Sir Brandel, Immortal Brandel. You go by a million names, right?
I only go by one, sir, as the Lord Brandel. Thank you very much. Your Lord and Savior. Who was here to talk about some very questionable upskirts about this game. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. One of which I got to experience, so but yeah, anyway, we got this whole doc of questions to go through and talk about this game. So why don't we go ahead and discuss that stuff?
Someone's talking to her.
Yeah, I do apologize about that. I don't know what's going on in my background here. Somebody's got some shit going on outside. Okay, looks like it stopped. I do apologize about that. So anyway, let me go ahead and read off the first one. Describe your initial thoughts upon seeing Tormented Souls for this first time. How do you feel about the game being a callback to old school survival horror? So actually, I kind of saw this game like way late into development. It's been in development for a while, and it looked really rough. If you like look at some of the earlier footage for this game, they don't even look alike. And this game was originally planned as a mobile game, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of things have changed, and honestly for the better. In terms of just it being a callback to old school survival horror, I think it does a really good job being somewhat of a love letter to like Silent Hill, in the sense that, like, you know, a lot of indie horror games, they try to go for that. We're trying to make a RE successor. We're trying to make a game that's very much like Resident Evil, and this game is just solely trying to focus on making a game that has a very similar atmosphere and similar themes in its game, or in this game, that are similar to Silent Hill, in my opinion. So in that regard, I feel like it was a really good way to do callbacks. But what about you guys?
Well, I had never heard about this game actually until the podcast idea was brought forth and Ren asked if I would buy it and play it. And I did, and I actually really enjoyed it. I don't think I've played a camera angle game like that before, so that was really interesting. But it was really good. It was really well done. Probably one of my favorite indies I've played so far, actually, after that. I mean, it was really well done.
Yeah, I wasn't sure kind of what to expect initially, but I was impressed overall. They did a really good job, especially kind of like you said, calling back to more of the Silent Hill-esque games.
Honestly, I only heard from the game from word of mouth, like from like you and some other people talking about the game, and then of course demo came out, tried it, liked it. It was really good, but honestly, it was a breath of fresh air to actually have a game that, for one, that came out and actually was a true successor to old school survival horror, opposed to being the same shit every single time to see like first person, right? So yeah, or it was just a nice welcome change of pace, and thankfully it came out really well. Otherwise, it would have been unfortunate if it didn't.
I would say this. I saw this game through Residents of Evil. So if you really like people showcasing indie horror or whatever, like you should go over there because that's how I got acquainted with this game. I liked it from the first impressions. Old school survival horror looks great, classic camera angles and all the creepy enemies. I think what added to it was some of the designs were sort of like Silent Hill-ish almost. So I like those backgrounds and everything that they had with blending all the psychological aspects into this game. So I bought it, supported it, and overall I really liked it so far. I haven't beaten it just yet, but I'm like 19 hours in, and that's like a good bulk, so I'm almost at the end of the game.
So, just really quick before we move on to the next question too, did you guys know that this was actually made by like a small group of like college students from Chile?
No, I didn't know. This is the first time I'm hearing of, what's their name? Dual Effect? First time I'm hearing of these people. So
Yeah, it's Dual Effect, and there's another team that was involved with it. Hold on, I'm trying to pull that up on my end.
I think it's called P Cube.
Yeah.
P-Cube is the publisher, I think. I think it was like Abstract Digital was the other team that helped out.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I think that's what it was. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, I was just really blown away by that because it's like when you look at the credits, it's not that many people that were involved in making the game. So and for a first outing, or at least as far as I'm aware, it's their first outing. It's very solid. Like, I don't think I've ever played or looked at an indie survival horror game that is played as well and felt as well to go through and was just very engaging as well as this game.
I also should say, for now, this is like on. I think they recently released the PS4 and the other versions on consoles. So if you want to go and play that,
PS4 and Xbox One
Xbox
came out.
I'm not sure about Switch. Has that come out yet or no?
I want to say that version came out the same day as the PS5 and Xbox Series X version and PC version, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So
It was supposed to come to Switch early this year, so I just don't know when.
Yeah, at least it's like widespread. So if anyone is interested, you can pick up the game from there on consoles.
Yep.
Oh, it actually has not come out yet. The Switch version is supposed to be coming out in April.
There you go.
At least it's on its way.
Yep.
So yeah, with that kind of out of the way, who wants to go ahead and read off number 2?
I can.
Alrighty, Ron, go ahead.
All right. Describe your general thoughts on the level design and puzzles. I'll go real quick. So the puzzles were on the first run, they are going to get like very confusing. It requires you to really read the lore, read the notes, understand what's going on, do some math. It's a lot of shit.
Familiar with Jesus?
Yeah, no shapes and sizes. Don't scream like me where I said I don't know what the fuck a hexagon is, all type of stuff. You're gonna have to really just know your stuff for these puzzles, or you can skim and cheat and look it up. The level design is great. I like the interconnected main hall. I was talking about how it gave me RPD vibes and how it just looked similar to the stuff you would see in either RPD or the Resident Evil Mansion in the first game. Really nice details. Like, this is one of the best looking indie games I played so far with fixed camera, so that's like a huge testament to the developers themselves.
Yeah, and just to kind of go off of that, like this, like I said before, there's really not many indie developers and indie games out there that do an indie horror game that's more so inspired by Silent Hill as opposed to RE. I feel like that's like the kind of like how it's easy for an indie developer to just make a stereotypical first person run and hide sim. It's very easy for an indie dev to also make a successor or indie inspired game that's more so catered towards RE fans. And in this case, they just kind of went like, "Fuck it, we'll just do something that's a little bit more akin to Silent Hill, maybe a little bit of like Clock Tower and Fatal Frame aspects thrown in there in the mix, right? And just put together a more psychological horror game, and I think that really worked out well for it."
Mm.
For me personally, I really thought it was interesting for the level design. I do have one minor complaint though, in that in the intro cinematic, when you see the hospital, it looks far bigger than what it is in the actual game. So I was kind of hoping the game would be a little bit bigger than what it really was. But that's really only the only nitpick that I have of this game. Puzzles, yeah, they're cryptic as shit. So if you like really cryptic, like Silent Hill 1 puzzles, you might be right at home. And at least in this regard, I do think that like in the future, if they were to make a Tormented Souls 2, or if they were to make a new horror game, please add in riddle difficulty. Just like Silent Hill, that's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, Silent Hill is the definitive game that tend to it basically took the riddle difficulty, and at least for people who don't know all this stuff or they can't really process it, because I think someone said it best on Reddit. Most of the playtime that is going to accrue in your first run will be being stuck on puzzles or being stuck on like, how does this piece of geometry fit into this fucking hole or whatever. So that's where your time is going to go into, and at times I didn't really even get it or understand it at points. Like, typically I'm really good at puzzles. Like I enjoy Silent Hill 2 on like the hardest puzzle mode ever, and people think I'm crazy for it, but this one was like they were getting me, like they were making me think like a lot. So I do like those games that challenge you in puzzles. Just let it be known, some of the stuff could be optional, and going forward you can make choices for the player where they can adapt to their own skill set.
I do take issue with some of the puzzles, like I guess hints or whatever. But some of them just don't make any damn sense towards what you're trying to do. Like with the keys, like there's like no clear indicator of what to like to turn the knob towards.
Yeah, when they say the one that confused me the most, I know what you're talking about, is the one with the bee and everything. Like I got the Tetris one that was on the picture, but the one with the bee and Adam and Eve and all this shit, I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? What
Yeah.
like good?
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it's really cryptic unless you really sit there and think. Some of them were, you think too hard about it, and it's really more simple than you think. So like for that one in particular, is that it's saying, humans are from Earth, so therefore the other three bees are in the comb, the hive comb, which is the hexagon, and then the Egyptian is from the pyramids, and then aliens are from outer space, so like the stars. So it's like stupid simple when you know the answer, but when you're sitting there you think way too hard, and that's what made some of them take so long, is you're thinking way too far out the box than what it actually is.
I think I was thinking like, why are these people naked? That's all I wanted to say.
The same thing I was thinking too.
Well, and kind of going off of what like Token was saying, right? Like that I was gonna say too, is like those hints on the side, I feel like are there just to throw you off, and that the actual answer is literally what the emblems are on that lock.
Yep.
So like because there's another one where it's literally just 538, and you're basically just trying to figure out the sides of each thing, right? Although I don't know how they confused a circle with an octagon, or an octagon with a circle. So yeah, but yeah, there's some that are really off. Actually, there is one puzzle I'm not a big fan of. It's the doorknob puzzle, where you got to mimic the heartbeats.
Yes.
The reason why I don't particularly like that puzzle is because for some reason, the sound of the actual knocks will sometimes go faster than the animation for the doorknob moving. So it can actually mess up, even though you might be getting it like damn near perfect. The timing on that is very strict. So I was not the biggest fan of that particular puzzle.
Yeah, because I did it the first time and I could have sworn I did it right, and I'm sitting there and it didn't unlock, and I'm like, what the hell did I do wrong? You had to do it in a particular way to replicate the sound. I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
To give
I've
him
had
credit,
times.
though,
Oh, go on.
to give him credit though, at least it was actually a really unique puzzle though. 'Cause I
Mhm.
never seen a puzzle like that before, right? But it's just like it's finicky because
Yeah,
because you have to literally press it faster than what the animation is giving out.
yeah, and it's one of those things where like I've had it where I've gotten it on the first try, and I've had runs where I literally couldn't get it until like the 30th try, and I like would have to like fucking rage quit and just come back to it another time because it was just annoying. So that's the only puzzle that I genuinely hate in that game.
Yep. Um, yeah, going off the puzzles, I actually really liked the level design. It was really cool. And Dom, you brought up a really good point about it looking so big from the outside and it being smaller on the inside. I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it, but that is true. But I did think it was set up really nice. It was really pretty. I really liked all the puzzles for what they were. Some of them were just so stupid simple, but some of them just took forever. I know the one you brought up, the Jesus one, had me laughing because my brain messed up the seconds in the hour hand for the longest time, and I don't know how. And I was sitting there, I was like, I know I have this right. And it was just two hands I had mixed up. And I was like, oh. But it was so cryptic to figure out how you were supposed to do that without any hints whatsoever. I mean, to randomly think you have to look at the paintings to figure it out. I was like, oh.
Yeah, and the fact that you have to know the exact like second of when Jesus was born is kind of ridiculous. Like,
Well,
because you could either use the paintings, or if you had the background knowledge of Jesus's like birth date, then you would kind of already know part of the puzzle at least.
yeah,
So,
from what I understood and read afterwards, the time had nothing to do with the Jesus's birth. I thought it was just the directions the swords were, or the weapons were facing in the paintings. It was the date, the month, and the day, which is
Mhm.
Christmas. Obviously, is when they say they celebrate Jesus' birth.
I just remember that puzzle. That's fucking ridiculous. I think it was like 8:35:15. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Then I gotta know the day in birth was easy, but just everything else, nah. I was like, it's time to look this up, and that's exactly what I did.
So this is partially going to go into a question that we have later in the doc, but how many of you know about the additional puzzle that they patched into the game?
I
The
don't.
one at the credits.
Yeah, we'll go into it a little bit more, but I was just kind of curious if anybody else knew about that particular puzzle that you could do. Because they give you the hint at the credits, but I found out after helping Brandon that you could do it on a fresh run without ever being the game. So that is
Wow.
something that I found out about last night actually, but I was just kind of curious to know how many of us here knew about that puzzle in particular.
I wondered so long what that meant at the end of the credits, and I never figured it out until you mentioned it the other night in chat, and I was like, "Oh!" And then after that, and I ended up getting it. It was really cool.
This is totally new for me, so that's cool.
Did anybody else want to go on this question before we move on to number 3?
One thing I want to point out is that certain level designs, certain details in the level design is kind of weird. Like, how is my path blocked by little those things where it tell you like the floor is wet or caution or whatever? I mean, I can literally just step over it and then get to my path. Or why do I need to go the long way around, literally solve 20,000 puzzles just to get behind a receptionist desk when I can literally just crawl over it? Stuff like that, though, it kind of annoys me because it doesn't make any sense.
You're thinking too smart.
Mhm.
That's the same shit that would come up in like old school survival horror games. Why can't you just jump over this? Like,
Exactly.
They also never
Alright.
fixed the east wing floor from what I saw, so you constantly have to go around if you go
Yeah,
upstairs.
that makes sense. Versus like the bottom floor where is like another stairway that's just blocked off for a reason, which you can literally move yourself out the way
oh,
because there's nothing there that's preventing you from going down there realistically.
And there is a move
Okay.
button too. Yeah.
was I the only one that played this game at launch, by the way?
Probably.
Probably.
Because the only reason why I'm asking is because the main hall, I don't know if you all know about this, but like pre-patch, that was a dynamic fixed camera angle that they had there. They changed that to like 2 or 3 different camera angles that are fixed and no longer dynamic. And I don't know
Nice.
why they did it, but it just happened. But yeah, why don't we go ahead and move on to number 3? Scared, do you want to go ahead and read off number 3?
Sure. Give your general take on the combat. This could range from guns to melee attacks. Is there something that needs improvement?
To be quite frank, the gameplay is pretty basic. You aim, you shoot, you knock somebody down, you beat the shit out of them with a crowbar. It's really pretty damn simple, all things considered, for what it is.
Yeah, I agree. It is simple. The only issue I kind of had was some of them, it seemed like you'd be right up on them to get the nail gun or the pipe shotgun to actually hit them. You couldn't be too far away, or else you just aim off into the distance somewhere and miss completely.
I haven't had that issue myself personally, especially with the new gun. I haven't had that issue where she misses because I just turn away and let the auto aim determine where the enemy is at, and then I just shoot.
The only thing I don't like is that when I'm shooting someone with the nailer, they happen to move forward through the bullet and somehow get closer. So each and every single time I had to double back, hit them with the crowbar, double back because they got like way too close simply because I was shooting them. Maybe like have it like RE where it's like they could tank some bullets, but they're still taking damage. And if they want to lunge towards you, then they're fast enough to do that. Because I found the enemy speed was ridiculous when they started to get alert, and that's when they started like shambling towards you and running faster. I was like, oh shit! At times when you're surrounded, it gets really intense, and I enjoy that about the game. But I feel like it's kind of dumb if you're plugging someone in the head and all of a sudden they just keep like vaulting towards you. You can't do anything; just take the hit.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest complaint actually with the combat is the dodge. I feel like if I hit the dodge and they're doing, because they have like spitting attacks for some of the enemies, and regardless if you hit the dodge right as that they're going through that animation, or just as you see that like hurling towards you, like you're still gonna get hit regardless, from what I've noticed. I'm just not the biggest fan of that. I feel like if you're gonna do a dodge, there should at least be a few seconds of iframes to work with as well. And maybe there is, and I'm just not hitting the strict enough timing for it. But I just felt like there wasn't many uses for me to be able to use that whenever they were doing like projectile based attacks, and specifically like the final boss also has a bunch of projectile attacks which you're not going to be dodging.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. The spread on that was really weird and really hard to dodge sometimes.
You can't run
Yeah.
either. It's gonna hit you in the back of the head, and then it's like, well, fuck, I gotta take the damage.
Yeah, and I don't know about you all, but like I felt like the hitboxes on those were really big.
Yep.
Like you would be like just a few inches off, and it would still count as a hit. And it's like, well, I'm pretty certain I dodged that, or like even if you hit the dodge button and you're backed up into a corner, you feel like you should have gotten at least some iframes to work with that, and there's nothing.
Yep. I agree. I also felt like her stagger was really weird. If you get hit with something, it's like you had no time to wait for her to come back from the stagger before you get hit by another creature. If there happened to be 2 at the same time.
Oh, if you're in the
really
corner, you're
annoying.
fucked. It's just,
Oh yeah, see,
you're just done.
nah.
That happened to me in the sewers. Like, if you get caught in the corner anywhere, you can't move, and you're trying to run away from the monster, and they're just stuck because the geometry is like, well, fuck you, I can't get through, I gotta keep getting hit. And that's another thing I don't like as well. If you get stuck on a corner, you're just screwed.
Mhm.
I will say too, like as far as weapons are concerned, like I like the unique aspect of like, oh, these are like kind of like makeshift weapons, right? Like
Mhm.
that's unique to that, right? And that's
Basically unconventional.
yeah, it's kind of like when you think about like Dead Space, for example, right? You're using like mining equipment basically as your weapons, right? Um, or like engineer equipment, more or less, right? So it's like these aren't conventional weapons per se, but I do think that there should have been like other like weapons to work with as well, because like we only get a total of 4 weapons to work with, 5 if we include the new additional weapon that they patched in as well.
To give them a
So
low selective, like
Mhm.
considering the smaller scope of the game, I don't think adding too many weapons probably could have like clutter up the inventory thing because there's no like item boxes, for example, right? So I think having like a
potentially, yeah.
limited pool over having multiple weapons, I think that would probably been a little too much there.
Potentially, unless if they did a thing where just like the new additional weapon where it takes up ammo that's already in the game, you know, so that way it's like, okay, well we got this one that's a stronger variation of this weapon. So like, what if we got 2 other weapons that were more or less stronger variations of the previous weapons that we were using? That type of deal, I think, could have worked. Um, but then again, like you never know. A sequel could improve on that. But they could introduce a much bigger game in the future and include more weapons, because we had that with like the Silent Hill games where we would get like a bunch of different melee weapons to work with and then a couple of different firearms to work with as well. And then Scared, did you want to go ahead and give your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think honestly a lot of it you guys have actually already said, but just in general, I was pretty impressed with the uniqueness of the weapons. I think a lot of games like this tend to give you the same sorts of weapons, whereas like this one had like the nail gun and whatnot, which
Mhm.
I thought that was like a really cute, not cute, but like yeah, an idea that I hadn't seen before, which I really appreciated.
You got any like ideas for like improvements?
Um, I think the only thing that really kind of annoyed me was more with the camera angles of the combat because I sometimes couldn't see what I was shooting at. So it's like, am I hitting? Is it still there? Is it dead yet? I honestly didn't know sometimes, and then it would come at me and it would be like, ah.
Mhm.
So that would be, I think, something I would appreciate more, whether it just be I don't know, the combat allowed you to have more camera angles. I don't really know how they would facilitate that, but I did find myself getting frustrated at times by that.
So typically, at least with like fixed cam games, usually what they try to do is try to get you to listen to sound cues. And if you can like pick up on certain sound cues, like you might not see what's in front of you, but if you can hear that it's like that hit is connecting, or if you hear that like death groan from like whatever you're killing, that's usually your like indication there that you've already killed the thing that you were shooting at.
Yeah, I guess I'm just like really bad at that.
I mean, and to be fair, like I had that issue too when I was first getting into like old school RE, where like I didn't really know what I was shooting at. I'm shooting at nothing basically. So like I definitely get where it's like, what am I shooting at? I don't see it. And different camera angles would be would be definitely appreciated. But once you start like picking up on that stuff, it's very easy to like tell like, okay, this is dead, that's dead, I can move on. I definitely hit that, right? So
Yeah, no, I'm somebody with like any of the Resident Evils. Like, I have no idea if it's dead. I just keep like shooting at it, or like I try to do that stomp on it or whatever,
mm.
just to make sure because I have no clue.
Alrighty. So Brandel, you want to read off number 4?
Actually, I do not, but since you ask, I will put that back up. how do you feel about all of the creatures presented within the game? Fuck the spike guys. That's the only thing that legit hit me most of the games was spike enemies. Well, in terms of
the guys
design
in the
though,
canes, right?
yeah. In terms of designs though, I think they actually are pretty damn good, you know. Kind of sort of typical given the theme of the game, but it's pretty good.
Mm.
That's what I call it.
I really thought they were kind of interesting. But more so from the perspective of like, okay, like some of them are like they were just like torn in half, right? Or like they were mutilated and like they looked like they had like different operations performed on them or whatever, right? Like and even though I kind of hate this game, not Tormented Souls, but the game I'm gonna bring up an example, right? It kind of reminded me of like the like enemies we would see in like Outlast. And even though I hate that game, like in that regard, that's something I could kind of give it props towards, is like, okay, these enemies do look good. But I guess the only thing, given the lore, and I know this is gonna be the question coming up, but like given the lore, I think I would have liked to have seen other stuff in relation to what was brought up in the game, as far as like the tribe that lived on the island and stuff like that, or like stuff relating to the cult. So
Yeah, I really thought the creatures were pretty unique. I too found an annoyance with the ones with the spikes, because it's like you had no idea how far away you had to be with those things not to hit you. It was so annoying. The one on the really big one that you had to loop the table for, that one was really cool. I did enjoy that one a lot, but I thought they all looked really unique. So
I guess I'll go next. I'll go next. The enemies are, for the most part, good. Creepy looking. They don't look like your routine average zombie, so that's a plus that they decided to take all these surgical tools and map them to the enemy in question. It kind of reminded me of this game called The Suffering, where most of the monsters are based after like inmates or prisoners that die in a certain way. So this kind of looks like, well, what happened if that was a hospital setting? For the most part, I really like how they look. As for how they function, it's just that annoying enemy that either spits on you, or the one that crawls around and has the spikes in his body. That's the one that's gonna kind of get you a lot, and he got me like a couple of times. Everyone else just feels a little bit slow, in my opinion. Like the big guy with the blades in his hands and shit, I felt like he was way too slow, and once you got the shotgun, you can keep knocking him down and stun locking him. So in terms of challenge, I kind of wish it was a little bit more variety. The ghost was cool, the hot dog neck ghost that came out of the woods and tried to attack you, or in this case the hospital.
Do you mean the one where you could just literally leave a room and
then despawn it? Yeah, I did that a couple of times when I found that out.
Yeah, there's really no, like, I really don't like the design of that enemy.
It's just
especially because if you know what the character, or who the character is, I think I would have liked something a little bit more I don't know, I guess I think I would have liked something that's a little bit more like Grudge inspired, maybe, or something to a similar vein.
Yeah, cause
like I don't know, I felt like the design didn't really look that good.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because after they get out of the jail cell, it's kind of weird to think they end up like that. So at first I thought that was like someone else. I thought that was like a completely random ghost that was like chasing you around, but it's a little bit more to it after you went in the past and did the actions that you did. But
yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later too, for sure. But
for the most part, it was just slow, and since you could despawn it anyway, it wasn't as much of a threat as I thought it was. So that's how I felt about it. Most enemies, except for the two I mentioned, were pretty easy.
Did you all? How do you all feel about the lack of boss fights? By the way, because I don't know if that's a question in the doc here. Because there's only one boss fight in the game.
I guess you could say.
Necessarily bothered me, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough enemies to deal with in certain situations, but I guess you could say, yeah, there were a little slew of bosses in the original RE1, so they could have tried a little bit more. It would have been cool to fight that guy that was marching around with the candle and the gas mask. I'm surprised they didn't do a little bit more with him.
So you do actually fight enemies like that when you get further towards the end.
Oh, okay.
They will start walking around and carry like these big hammers.
Mhm.
Basically the best way I could describe him is like, imagine like a discount keeper from Evil Within.
Oh, okay. So it kind of reminds me a little bit too of the guy from Downpour, the boogeyman with the hammer and everything.
Yeah, like unlike the keeper, these guys can be killed because they're the actual like cult members or whatever. But as far as like just overall like, you know, what they do, it's like there's nothing special, and they're not as intimidating to deal with as they look. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
I think it would have been nice if they had more boss fights, at least maybe like 2 or 3, but I didn't really feel like it took away from the game because I felt like there was still like enough to fight.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it just would have been an enhancement rather than something that the lack of it is a detriment to the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there was plenty roaming around. You didn't necessarily need more boss fights, especially considering once you try to go for the plat and you try to do the speed run and the not use the healing items. If you'd had more boss fights, it would have made it way harder than it already was.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. The only reason why I brought it up is because I do admittedly wish there was at least like 2 or 3 more boss fights. You know, just to kind of make it, just to kind of have like a bit of a pace breaker or a challenge for the player. And granted, that's something else we'll kind of talk about a little bit later too. But like, I guess with you know, again, the size of that whole hospital and how it looked in the cinematic versus how it actually is on the inside when you're in the game, it's not I guess it was a little bit underwhelming in that regard.
I guess
At
just
least in
to
my opinion. So.
yeah, I guess just to bounce off that, they probably could have did a little bit more something with the past, because basically you are there to put items there so they can either charge up or, you know, be brought into the future, which we're going to talk about later. But yeah, I do wish as a gameplay perspective that they could have put in a little something to scare the player and maybe say, oh, more time displacement stuff's getting through. How is that going to fuck up the creatures in this part of the time as well, as stuff is going on, and maybe they could put some little story details there. But overall, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's just something that's like there, and that's it.
I'm glad you mentioned the time stop though, because they did not do enough with it.
You're right about that. You just go in, put something in like a slab, or wait for something to grow in the present, and then you're done.
Yeah.
It is
So, like,
in the game it's only like 3 instances that you have to do it. The 4th instance is optional.
yeah, honestly, they could have done more where like you see like how certain creatures are placed obviously purposely, right? Certainly if you go into the past, right, maybe you can see like why they're there, or you should kill some enemies in that spot, then return to the present, and you know it affects that's side of the things. That would have been, you know, neat though, but given that it's like a team of 3 people though, I guess I could cut them loose like for that.
So are we good on this question? Alrighty. Token, you want to go ahead and read off number 5?
Sure. Did you read up on any of the lore details within Tormented Souls? If so, did you find anything fascinating about the Wildberger lore or the religious cult? I personally did not read up on any of the lore details, but I did find it interesting gathering all the files within the game itself and reading up on it. That was really interesting to me.
For me, it was more so just what the game told me via, the notes you pick up and the cutscenes or the dialogue that you get with the priest, aka the grandfather. So, yeah, like as far as that, like I was a little bit more interested to know about, the tribe or whatever, and they don't really talk about that. It's like so vague how like you know, um, the the island was inhabited by a tribe who was able to, revive people from the dead, and then all of a sudden, many years later, colonists came over and they set up a cult, and somehow were utilizing that power to do whatever the hell they were doing in the hospital. Um, and I know, like, the grandfather was trying to like oh, I'm sorry. I knocked my mic. I know the grandfather was trying to like revive this weird looking heart monster on a like makeshift crucifix or whatever, right? But it's like, what was the purpose? That's what I wanted to know. Like what was the ultimate goal here, and what would have happened if we just let that thing roam around? Like I think like more of a clear indication on what the cult was after would have been ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Excuse me. I never did read up more into it, but collecting all the files has always been something that I've enjoyed in other games as well. So as I went, I did enjoy being able to read those and kind of figure out some of the lore that they give you that way.
Hmm.
I'm gonna be honest, I filed most of the files in my playthrough, but I do know they have this whole tribe and they don't really like go into vast detail, but there is a lot of family shenanigans going on with twins and symbolism and sacrifice from what I saw in the files and the story. So I figured that's all leading to these two twin sisters together, which I know the ending, but we're gonna talk about that later. So I think discovering that in the background is nice. I'm never gonna say no to files explaining more of the story, where if they put it into an actual game, it will probably be like 40 hours or something, because that's how storytelling can be. It gets bloated over time. But I do think that for the most part, it's interesting. You want to see what happens with the Wildbergers. You want to see what happens in the hospital. How did these people get to this point? But mostly, like you said, the cult aspect, it seems like they tried to do the whole god cult thing from Silent Hill, and that didn't really, translate too well in context with that, because I remember they had the Indian burial ground in the ocean, and that was cool. But for the other side, it's like, you want to know more about them. Why are these people doing these rituals all over the place? So I thought it was fascinating for what it was. Just, it could have been a little bit more fleshed out in terms of visual storytelling.
Brandon, you got any takes on this?
Nope.
Yeah, and the other thing too, because and we'll kind of get into this as well, but they in one of the endings they mentioned that they're gonna go get help or whatever, but like, who the fuck's gonna help them, and where? If there's a small town nearby in this remote hospital in Canada, right? Because the game takes place in Canada, by the way. Like who would even remotely believe anything that's gonna come out of Caroline's mouth?
Yeah, at first I thought it was like a giant island or something. I didn't know that it was like a hospital at first. I thought it was like a giant mansion. Then as you go into more details, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is where they set up shop and they did a lot underground. So
Technically, it was a mansion. It got converted into a hospital at some point because the old hospital in the area had burnt down.
They doing the same as RE2, converting like museums into police stations. That's weird.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess we're good here. Ren, why don't we go ahead and I was thinking like, who am I gonna have read? But yeah, why don't we go ahead and have you read off number 6 then?
Okay, so you can acquire 3 distinctive endings as you play the game. The good ending, which is, you and the child Anna escaping through time. The neutral ending, which is Caroline mercy killing Anna, which is her sister, if you don't know. And then the regret, which is the bad ending where you leave her and everything behind, and then all of a sudden a ghost comes out of nowhere and kills you, which is your sister. So how do you feel about the endings and the goals to achieve them in the first place? Dom, didn't you say like you think 2 of the endings are lame?
Okay, so in my opinion, I really hate the bad ending. I felt like it was very cheap, and I really hate the track that they played at the very end. It just sounds so like ear grating to me.
Mhm.
But the forgetfulness ending where you cure Anna, and then you just leave and you don't go back into the tape or whatever to get her out of the cell. That I really like the way that ends. It's kind of like a bittersweet ending, and I really like the track that plays at the very end of that, for the credits for that ending. And then and honestly, I kind of prefer it over the true ending, because the true ending, obviously she goes in, takes her sister out, um, and she admits, like, yeah, maybe what I'm doing isn't necessarily right, and even her sister's like, I feel like I shouldn't be here, like something's off, right? Um, so like that ending, not a bad ending, and I also like the track that they used to play out the credits for that. Um, so yeah, if I had to rate them, at least in my opinion, bad ending just can go straight in the fucking trash for me.
So you say this is
Forgetful
bad.
or neutral ending is my top, and then probably a pl- bleh. Close second would be the true ending, with Caroline getting Anna away from the cell.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you here. Honestly, though, the training still doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would she drag her sister out to a different time point where you potentially could find the I put up. I don't think time paradox could play a part there because clearly their time logic, really doesn't make any sense. Because on one hand, you can go back in time and corrode the thing, right? But
Yeah.
she can escape. But you can also go back and save her again, which means that you cut the train and you take her out. So like, there's so many parallels up there. Whole time travel that doesn't make any sense once you break it down, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
from
So that being said, though, I do not really get the logistics behind her taking her sister out. That should create some serious problems. But then
from
again, though, you can inject batteries from the past into the from the present into the past, and then vice versa. Like again, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well,
uh,
and keep in mind too, like in the end, like she also, like the younger sister Anna wanted to go back and find the mother.
Hmm.
So like, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll do that, and obviously it never happens in the game, but it's like, so how are you gonna do that? And then also too, like, are you gonna just attempt to save yourself, your younger self, on top of your father, who, at least in the files, was very much against the grandfather, who was like doing all this cult shit and was also abusing the mother and whatnot, and was worried that the kids were going to get abused by the grandfather, like, so
ah,
there's a couple of things that they would have to sort out here.
Yeah.
yeah,
For me, I think the best ending would definitely be the neutral. I feel like that could open up more doors for like sequels involving this character and maybe her sister as well. Because if she is like say escapes and you don't save her, that could like lead to maybe like another branch inside Tormented Souls lore where you play the sister in another game, trying to find the mom for the girls, right?
Yeah, even
Yeah,
when
I have
she
to.
transforms, it's still different because she's not in the cell anymore, and something changed. So they could do something like that where it's like, oh well, we continue from this time point and have a new game.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that like I agree that I think the neutral ending is probably the better of the three. But I do think that the good ending could open up the doors to other sequels as well. But yeah, I think just a lot of the whole time traveling thing does tend to get muddled in general, usually for these kinds of storylines. But I think either one could be good for potential sequels. But I like the good ending, I think, the most for sequels, and the neutral ending just as is.
I just want them to know you can't save them all, otherwise you get 5,000 different timelines, and it's like, well, are they going to explain this or not? That's part of the problem.
About to go in there like Days of Future Past.
Yeah, it's like you move one thing, something fucking changes in the present. And it's like, holy shit, I just don't know how they would do that. I'm pretty sure if they had a continuation, it'd be something good to build off of. Maybe even put that in the game because, like I said, that's like good stuff that we'll talk about later. But it's all just confusing when you really start to think about it. Still, it's an interesting confusing. It's not like something that's dumb or super like bad in terms of like how you're putting it. Like it's all interesting storytelling, just we want the execution to be good.
Yeah, and it just depends on how far they go with it.
Mhm.
Because potentially a sequel might not even delve into that. If at like if it even does, it might not delve into it much. Just like this game, where we only had a few instances here where we did that. Same thing with the potential sequel, which is the next question, and we'll kind of talk about that. But like if they delve into that kind of thing, like how much are they going to delve into it? And if they delve in, because now you got to find a good balance, right? Because if they delve into it too much, then it might just seem as like a easy way to kind of pull punches, or just really uh give us like cop out answers to certain questions that might be left with this game.
I would say also make people confused because that's the main crux of time travel. Like you have to keep it interesting but also simple enough to the point where it's believable. If not, then you could easily go off the track and mess it up and have like 5,000 different timelines and like your head just explodes.
Hmm. Does anybody else have anything to say on this before we move on to number 7?
Nope.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read off number 7. The true ending is building up to a potential sequel regarding the possible consequences of going back into the past. This goes double for bringing Anna into the present. If they continue from here, then what would you like to see story-wise? And so for me here, and the reason why I wanted to have this question is because there is that potential that this game as a story, this game as a game could be just a one and done, and they might move on to a different horror game with a different name, different lore, etc., etc., right?
Mm.
Or they do a sequel to Tormented Souls, but they make it as an anthology series where it's just unrelated stories. They're unrelated locations and stuff like that. Characters are not related in any way, shape, or form. They just do random horror scenarios, right, in random locations with random reasons as to why those things are going on, right? So there's that potential. But on the flip side of that, there's also the potential that they do a direct sequel to this game, and they do answer some of those questions from the first game that people might have with the time travel and stuff like that. And they might delve into whether or not they save the mother, and um, go into other sorts of territories with that. but it's at least at the moment, because this team is literally, just finished making this game last year, is now doing ports of this game for other platforms that they promised they would release it on. So we don't know what the future entails with that. In fact, we don't even know if they plan on doing other content for this game, which is something else we're going to delve into as well.
I always say, when in doubt, if you feel like it's too confusing, you could always start over with new characters. One thing I like about Silent Hill is that, and I know I keep bringing it up, but I think is relevant to this question as well. You could always have it where it's like one central location is vital to the story and everything else is just thrown out. You could put in new characters and new scenarios or new ways of how they got into the Wildberger Hospital, and that could also work. It would be going back to the original, while also you could do something different, like maybe expand the scope and go outside of the hospital and have that as a central location while you're in the streets doing stuff and monsters are like fucking everywhere. So I think they have two choices. Either they can continue or they can make something new, but it's all going to boil down to the wire. It's also a third option, like you said, which is they could move on and use the mechanics from this game and make something else.
Yeah. Actually, kind of going off of that too, with what you brought up, and I'll just be really quick here. It's, potentially, because we had mechanics where we were going through mirrors, right, and going into the quote unquote other world, right?
Yep.
Imagine if we went into a more Silent Hill, like small town scenario, right? And now we have more involvement with that sort of mechanic, right? Like that'd be really interesting, right? And that's another way that they could expand on that in the future.
We also talked about the past with the cultists. Also, sorry to cut you off.
Actually, answer the question though. The one thing I want to actually, I guess, delve into is the consequences of pulling someone else into a different town.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you pull a little Donnie Darko, if anyone's seen that movie, where a lot of weird things will happen because this person or item, whatever, is not meant to be here. So thus it creates a time of fuckery in the present.
Yeah, I would like, in a way, if they made the story where if you pull something back from the past, or if you go to the past too much, then that could lead to the bad ending. Whereas if you stay in the present, if you like fight everything there, or you accept you got to move on or whatever and make choices that way, that could lead to some interesting scenarios.
Here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you mentioned that you're really into the suffering, right?
Yes.
And that's, at least for that game, that and its sequel, right? They kind of tie into, well, what if you played the first game and got X, Y, or Z ending, right?
Yeah, and then it has a new beginning based on what neutrality or what ending you got from the original game. So if you started off bad and killed everybody and decided to be a bad boy, then you continue on to the sequel, and the new intro will be like you're completely just a monster at that point. That would also work as well if they brought something like that back, because you don't see games do that as much anymore. The last game I can think of that tried it was Infamous, where if you have like certain karmas, you could carry over into the next game with Infamous 1 and 2, but not a lot of people do that anymore, so I think that would be really original.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to go with this one?
I think a sequel would be really interesting to see if they're actually going to do that. But I liked it as a solo as well. So
yeah, it could go like pretty much either way, and I guess depending on how interesting it looks, I would be all for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be fine without a sequel, but I am very curious to see how they would go about it if they were to actually do one.
Brendan?
I mean, I already answered the question, so move
on. Answer it again, Black Man.
Actually, before we move on to, I thought about this. in a kind of similar fashion, they could pull a Silent Hill in that, yeah, we get different characters per game
Mm.
and go through their story, right? And granted, I know post Silent Hill 4, a lot of people are just not a fan with how that was handled. But like just the idea of like it's still tied to that universe, but in the sense of it's still kind of like an anthology in the sense that you're following different characters could be a really good
Well,
idea as well.
okay, like I might say like in what regard exactly? Because even like in the first 4 games, only like 1 and 3 and 2 and 4 are only games that are connected to each other. Like they're
Right.
so how's that gonna work in the context of Tormented Souls? Do you
Well-
want it to be like that, where the next game is like literally another universe
E-
time frame,
even
or do you want it
into
to be a sequel?
even into the old gods and all that stuff with Pyramid Head and Vatael was still the same. So I guess keeping the lore is fine, but having new characters be in different situations while the established events kind of happen in the town in different ways could be interesting for the hospital. So-
Essentially, you want to be like Silent Hill 2 and 4, then in that side of things, because that's kind of basically what happens more so in those 2 games. Well, I should say 4 mostly.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, like I could say it like that, because they don't necessarily have to make it be a direct sequel, although they could go kind of in the route of like, okay, Silent Hill 1 to 3, where that is actual like a legitimate connection, and then from because the game takes place in the 90s, and you go back into the past in like 14 years after the fact, so it's like in 1980 when you're going back to the past, right?
Mhm.
So they could have it where like, okay, yeah, the consequence of bringing back that character, right? And now that it's like present, like, or not necessarily present day, but like let's say it's 2008 or something like that, or 2004, right? And now we're playing as the younger sister who's now grown up, right? And of the actual age that she would have been in the previous game had she survived, right? You get what I'm saying here? Like,
Oh yeah. I guess we move on to the next question though, since we're done here, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead and read off number 8, Brandon?
It's number 8. Okay, so how do you feel about the time displacement from past to present? Honestly, it's a really cool mechanic. Because that's not the first time we've seen it before, right? Though, just there's not enough with it though. It's just for like inserting one item here and then go back to another point and take it apart, right? It's not like you find anything unique or come across anything super unique other than maybe talking to the priest for the 3rd time you visit there, or the 2nd time. I don't remember with the tape. So either way though, it's really cool, but not enough of it that they've done aside from puzzle solving.
No, the only time I remember a mechanic like this was on Amusha 3 because I think like someone was in the past, someone was in the present. I don't remember, but I remember
So,
both characters
I-
had that sort of happen.
yeah, so I could explain that with that game. It's so basically when Samanosuke got thrown into the future because of the time fold in that game,
Mhm.
the time fold was unstable, and Guildenstern was trying to get Nobunaga into the present, so that way they could basically like start their conquest from scratch, where they have nobody to oppose them essentially, because they're in a different time period. They would have far more access to technology that they could enhance their own Genma technology with, um, animals and also people to experiment on to turn into Genma, which is why we had the whole zoo segment. So while Samanosuke is in the present, because of that unstable time fold, Jacques gets pulled into the past. And so while that's happening, when we're getting closer towards the end of the game, there's also more unstable time folds, and you could get there's points where you go back into the past, but these are pasts that are like small bubbles and don't really have a major impact into anything. They're just small pockets of time. And then there's also parts in the game where when you're climbing up the Eiffel Tower, if you get caught into a time fold, you just get sent all the way back down. So stuff like that is how Onimusha 3 did it in particular.
Yep, it was really creative, and it was a lot of it, as opposed to this one where it's like, maybe I got to go back in the past and put like an item there in order to have it like sort of mature into the future, like the charged battery or the blood pack. You got to wait for it to
Yeah.
freeze. And so it's stuff like that where it's like, it could have been some fights in there, maybe some other cool features there, but you don't spend like a lot of time in there for the most part.
Yeah, Onimusha 3 did that as well, and it did that very well because it made that it was a gimmick and a mechanic, but it worked well in the context of the story. Whereas like Tormented Souls, like I feel like they were maybe toying around with the idea and maybe were experimenting with that, so potentially in the future if they wanted to build upon that, they would.
It's cool. I don't diss that. They try something and it definitely worked, but it needs more work is the problem.
Yeah, I really liked the idea when it was the first time you had to go back in the past. I thought it was really cool, but I too agree it should have been the game more than just doing a couple things. I did like how it changed the visuals though. That I thought was really cool. I really liked that a lot.
Anybody else want to go? Like scared maybe? Do you want to say something on this?
Yeah, I was just kind of replaying in my head some of the parts that you do going back in the past. And I have to say, probably what I thought was the most clever was with the lock. When you pour the like acid or whatever it is onto it, it doesn't melt the lock right away. It actually takes time, and that's why you have to like go back and forth and stuff like that. Um, I thought that was quite clever. In general, I'm not always the biggest fan of time travel or going back to the past between then and the future, but I thought they worked it pretty well in this time.
Alrighty. I guess everybody said their piece on this, so why don't we have we'll have Ren read off number 9.
All right, sure. So there is only one patch costume and a secret nail gun for unlockables. This means that post-game content is bare bones. What could be added to sustain the replay value in your opinion? Just
More costumes.
more costumes, maybe like arrange modes, you know, mini games perhaps. I mean, a lot of survival horror games have these little mini games you could play, like battle mode. Yeah, like clear a room of enemies out the fastest and see like how fast you could do it. Maybe you get like an additional weapon or infinite ammo, just like Ari.
So here's a couple of things that I think that they should definitely add. Obviously in post patch there was only that one costume, as well as the additional triple shot nail gun, which is hidden behind a new puzzle. Which that stuff is cool, don't get me wrong. Like, it was great that they even bothered to add that stuff in. But what I would like to see is additional difficulty modes, because certain trophies, I'm not gonna lie, they were kind of a pain in the ass going through the game that way, and I would have liked to have had difficulties where I could have made that, easier to cheese. But then, just for challenge runs, like I would like harder difficulties as well, just to have the option of it. So that's one thing that I think they should really look into, is harder difficulties and also easier difficulties for various reasons. Additional costumes, hell, like I know it's a small team and maybe they don't have the resources to just come up with a million different costume ideas. I don't know how big the fan support is for this game at the current moment, but like maybe run like a art contest and see if like maybe somebody can come up with a cool design and you could add that. I don't know. So stuff like that, new costumes. I would actually like maybe some potentially additional weapons that use the ammo that's in the game. Like I think it would be really cool if we had like a double-barreled shotgun, or a shotgun that could hold a little bit more ammunition than just the one shot. I know that would be broken, but we already have a triple shot that you could just use, right? So like, come on, let's have a little fun here, right? If we already beat the game, just we could have a little fun, right? I think the arranged mode is a good idea as well too that Ren came up with, and I would also argue that it would be really cool if they could add in a new mechanic, or like maybe if they would add something similar to like the one dangerous zombie mode, but not where it fucking blows up, but more so like a Crimson Head or some type of deal, right? Where you get like a new enemy type that appears on like follow-up runs, right? Like that I think would be really cool.
Does it honestly sound like more sequel material than anything than unlockable? So.
Yeah, I know, but there's a lot that I could obviously spitball, and I know there's like only so much that they could do. So really, it like realistically, I think like additional costumes and difficulty modes would be the most ideal thing.
I know it would be probably kind of a lot of extra work for them to add it, but sort of touching on how it was brought up that from the outside, the hospital looked a lot bigger than you really got to play. It'd be great if, like, on the second playthrough, an extra corridor of the hospital or even just an area sort of opened up that was completely different with maybe like one extra puzzle and a new enemy or something.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Just oh, go on.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying like just an optional like side thing to do for New Game Plus for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all that. The extra areas that can open up in the end, extra costumes, and I too was so thinking about the double barrel shotgun idea after the triple nail. It's just like, oh man, that would be so sweet to have. I mean, for beating the game a certain amount of times to unlock more things would be really nice, especially considering the people that are going to go for the achievements anyway and have to play multiple times to have different things each time you replay would have been really nice.
Yeah.
Put invisible enemies to make people cry. I would love that.
I would delete that.
I would just.
Nah, just no.
I was.
I can auto lock, man. I'm like, nah, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. These enemies are annoying as it is. There's no way I'm doing this.
Well, if they put a bunch of mirrors to help you out, like remake one, then maybe. But
that wouldn't work though, because
that wouldn't work.
The mirrors, so like you wouldn't, you probably wouldn't see them. So like
they have a few of them in the game. Like it's not only just mirrors you can see the reflections on. It's like glass and also water. But yeah,
that's
marble
far between though.
Yeah, and it's
in the sewers as well. So
that's a kind of problem that happened with the remake one. It's like, yeah, you have mirrors though, but it's only in one location. Oh, sorry, 2 locations. Like it's so far in between that it doesn't even matter.
I think when I started shooting them, I started seeing them better. So I would say One Dangerous Zombie is way worse, but that's like another podcast for another day.
Yep.
A final question?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. We haven't been talking about the character's design, man. Like nobody brought up her brilliant character design. I'm quite surprised.
You only brought it up because you liked the beginning of the game, you fucking horny bastard.
Well, sorry, I was talking about that. So you're the last one talking about
No. You were thinking it. I saw that scene. I was like, huh?
I know that's your favorite scene too. Don't lie.
I saw that scene. I'm like, I'm gonna have to put some hamburgers up here because like she's
a coward.
She's fully naked.
Coward.
I don't want to get demonetized.
Man, you don't even make money.
I do make money on YouTube.
What you mean, like what? 2 nickels?
No, I made like $100, and I'm like, I don't want to get demonetized, so I put tits.
Pennies, you mean?
You said 100 titties?
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, I actually before they even added in the additional costume, like just the general like movement animation that the character has is like really good. I remember I was streaming it in the call the other day, and like one of our friends jumped in and he was like, what is this game? Like the animations look really nice. Like why is it so clean? Like, so it's just one of those things where I think like they really nailed that too, where just the overall aesthetic of how the character looks and moves I don't know, to me at least felt really natural.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks fine for what it is. I do think the character's face looks a little bit too cartoony. Like
Yeah, I agree.
it kind of reminds me of Siphon Filter 2, where it's like everything else looks kind of nice except for the character faces, where it's like just a big cartoon block. But once you get past it, I mean, it's fine for what it is. I think I enjoyed it too.
I think they were going more for a kind of like a time splitters aesthetic, because when I was looking at like the main character and then also Anna, they look very much like they came out of a time splitters game.
Yeah, the style is equivalent to that, where it's like not everything else is detailed, but like just the characters and how they look is definitely cartoony, but it's definitely an artistic choice, so it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just you notice it when you first see it in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyone else on this art style?
The art style, in my opinion, was just okay. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. I can live with it.
Yeah, I thought it was really good for it being an indie, and I'd never even heard of it until past month or so. I was really impressed with it. So I thought it was really pretty.
Also, I want to give a special sort of shout out to how they did the mirror world. I thought that place looked creepy at first. Like the faces on the walls and the bodies like strewn out, and it's like the pipes are bleeding blood. I thought that was cool. Like it really felt like Otherworld to me.
You know what else we didn't talk about? The fact that you die if you're in the dark too long.
Honestly,
Quite literally.
if I didn't know that, or if I wasn't trying to kill my character because I wasted like so much ammo, I would have never died in the dark. It's like it's not even hard to really avoid it at all. It's like super easy.
But that's not explanation on why you, at least to my recollection, at least, why you die in the dark. The closest
Yeah,
thing,
there's-
I think the closest thing to that is like the whole shaman story that the priest talked about. But even so,
They don't even show what's killing you. Like they just drag her away. I'm like, did she get sliced up? What, did she get eaten? What happened?
the chromatic aberration killed her.
Yeah, you're right about that. That looked awful. I'm
Yeah, I was gonna say like yeah, I didn't really get that. And personally I was not the biggest fan of it. Mostly because there are parts in the game where, you know, they block off your progress with those wall guys or whatever they're called. All the enemies have names. I just didn't keep track of them. But the guys with the weird blades in their hands and they're stuck to the wall and their backs are all like ripped off or whatever.
I think their name is literally called the Waller. That's it. It is so unoriginal,
really?
but yeah, that's the name.
Yeah, like personally, I wasn't a big fan of just you know, being in the dark and not being able to deal with that, because like if I needed to beat the fuck out of that guy, right, and you know you're still with the lighter and you don't get the flashlight till like about halfway through, right? Like that's why in like subsequent runs I always went for the flashlight first, because you didn't have to go in a particular order, but going for the flashlight just made progress go by way faster.
Yeah, I was mentioning earlier before the podcast started to Ren and Scared about the fact that I didn't even realize you could die in the dark, because I didn't even, the 3 runs I did to plat the game, I did not die in the dark one time, and I didn't even realize it was an achievement for dying in the dark. I had to look it up. I was just like, oh, I didn't even realize you could do that.
Yep.
I still haven't died in dark yet.
Yeah, it's super easy to avoid. Like as soon as you see the RBG or whatever the fuck they call it, the aberration, then you could just
Chromatic aberration.
yeah, you could just equip like the lighter and avoid it, and it's no problem. But I do get the criticism of, well, I gotta go in this room and there's enemies. I want to fight them to get them out of the way. I cannot get rid of the lighter, so that kind of like crept on me a lot in the game until I got the flashlight, which is way better.
Yeah, the really quick too. Not sure if any of you know about this, but like at least on the console version of the game, they have this thing that tells you like, yeah, you have to hit this button to turn off the flashlight. You cannot turn off the flashlight. I've tried.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why that's in there. Maybe they forgot to remove that, or maybe it was like patched out by accident, and that's something they're going to add back in later on. But for whatever reason, that's there. It's advertised at least on the game's box. Not sure why it's telling you that, but it's advertised in the fucking options of the game that you could turn it off, but you can't. So like, don't know why, but yeah, if you wanted to get that achievement, you cannot get the flashlight.
One last thing before we go on to the last question. The rules for the darkness doesn't make any sense, because you can literally stand like a slither of darkness and it will kill you, right? It could be a room, could be brightly lit though, but that low corner can kill you. So what if you just like pull a Spider-Man and just hang on to the ceiling though? Would that kill you? What if there's moonlight shining through the window at night and it's still dark though and it turns the light? Would that kill me still? There's no consistency.
That's an interesting hypothetical. Like, if it's still, because I kind of felt that when you went in the bathroom, like I was like, okay, this little candle light is gonna really protect me, even though I can just walk on the other stall in darkness and be fine. It really didn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, and the way that the candles work too, like I understand that they wanted to go for like the area was going to be like dark, but then some of those rooms, like you think like, shouldn't this candle like light up most of this room?
Yep.
So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get ready to wrap up. So I'm gonna have Scared read off the very last question here.
Yeah. So what is your final verdict and recommendation for this game? I'll just go ahead. I overall really liked the game. I think I appreciated the most about it was that it was an indie game that had a lot of unique aspects to it that still, brought in that Silent Hill feel. I feel like, it had a little bit of Resident Evil, but mostly Silent Hill, without feeling like it was trying too hard to copy it. I really appreciated that about it. I liked the puzzles. I thought they were incredibly unique for the most part. And so, yeah, if you like Silent Hill type games, if you like those old school survival horror, then I don't think you could go wrong with this one.
For me personally, it's definitely highly recommended. I bought this game day one actually for the full $40 that it was worth on PlayStation 5 for the physical copy. I will tell you right now that currently it is on sale on PS5 for like $14. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop that link, and Ren could go ahead and post that on screen or whatever later when he edits this podcast. But
I'm sure it'll be over by the time he does it.
yeah, probably. But well, no, actually it ends in March 3rd, so you got some time. I don't know if you're gonna edit it tonight, but
I might do it tonight. I might.
But even then, like when the sale's not going on, it's like $20 on PS5. Yeah, I highly recommend it. Yeah, it does have some flaws, and there is some things that they could definitely improve upon and work on, and definitely things maybe in the future that if they're planning on supporting this game further after they release their other ports with additional content, that'd be great. But yeah, it's really good. Like I don't think like I said before, I don't think I've ever played an indie game that was as solid as this one, and that is as close to a very similar Silent Hill feeling game. Considering the fact that there isn't that many games out there like that replicate that sort of play style, as opposed to your typical RE clones and your typical run and hide simulators that kind of have come and gone over the years through the indie market. So definitely, like if you can get it, I would highly recommend it. And even on the platforms that it's just come out on, or that it's coming to eventually, like get it on those if you want to get it on those. It's fucking amazing. And Token even mentioned it's $20 on Steam. Get it, play it.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good game. I don't know if I just lived under a rock for I don't know how long, but I had not even heard of this game until it was mentioned to me But I'm really glad it got recommended because it is one of my favorite games so far to have played indie wise. I think it's really well done. Worth the money, $20, $40, don't matter. I think it would have been worth it either way. But yeah, it was a fantastic game. I would so recommend it to anybody that likes indie, horror, any of that. It was really good.
Huh, the cat finally crawled from rock. Okay. So
You hush.
so
No, you-
I will say this is a very great experience. I enjoyed my playthrough of it. I'm still like getting to the final conclusion, but I mean, if you like fixed camera and all that stuff and you want that to return, I'm sorry. Go support this game. Buy this game. Because
Sorry, community.
it caters to your needs. I'm sorry, a little bit sick right now. So go out, buy Tormented Souls. It's cheap. We've plugged it to death. I think that for the most part, for what they did in this first iteration, they really knocked it out of the park. I wasn't expecting like the level of like detail or care that has gone into this product like this team did, and I hope to see more from them in the future as well.
Yeah, mind you
yeah.
too. Really quick, mind you too. This was originally a mobile game project before it became a full console release and PC release. So
That's
the
crazy.
fact that it went from being a mobile game to what it is now is like, it should tell you how much, like, if we're praising it, we're not sponsored by the company that made it or anything like that,
No.
right? And like, if every one of us is recommending it, like, just go buy it.
Hmm.
Like, just do it.
That's impressive. Mobile to this. Yeah, I didn't even know that. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
Oh, well, since I'm talking, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I highly recommend this game. Like, the fact that it's their first title, it's highly commendable that they're able to pull this out, right off the back end, and just nailed it. So yes, go support the official release if you guys can, and yeah. What takes sponsorships, by the way?
So I think we've all done our recommendations from here. So why don't we go ahead and do outros? You basically all could find me as biodevil_dom on Twitter, YouTube. I am working on my RE7 review, but between work and Elden Ring at the moment, a lot of my time is being taken up,
Gosh.
especially because of Elden Ring. So I am working on it. It is on its way. It's about like, I want to say it's borderline on the halfway point of being done. So it's getting there. But we'll see when it comes out, because I might have other reviews coming out around the same time. Anyway, why don't we go ahead and get Lady Token outroed?
You guys can find me on both YouTube and Twitter at Lady Tolkien for YouTube and Lady Tolkien_7 on Twitter.
Alrighty. After that, we got Scared. Where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube. I delve into lesser known Japanese horror, so if you're interested in that, be sure to check it out.
Awesome. After that, we got Sir Brandel.
You can find me going to sleep after this. You can find me on Twitter at Immortal Brundle, and everyone else is none of your goddamn business. I'm tired. Leave me alone.
And then last but not least, we got Renegade Operative.
Unfortunately.
Shut up. I was almost gonna say you forgot my outro, but
That's why I paused for a second.
I
I was gonna see if anyone was gonna say anything, but yeah,
I was
go on.
pondering that for a bit. But you can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative. Twitter Ren_. I forgot my damn Twitter. You can find me on Twitter properly at RenOperative_ and Twitch at Renegade_operative. A lot of underscores, but I'm working on some stuff with this podcast. Tormented Souls, I've been uploading that as I kick my fan over. That playthrough is up right now. I'm on like part 10, so I'm really just putting in the work for that one. And then the only thing I got planned next is just some reviews, so hopefully I review DMC2, which is probably going to come next week.
Nice. Alrighty, so that's pretty much been our podcast for today. You can always check us out over at other sources. I forget where we're at. We're on like iTunes and Spotify now, right? Or some shit.
Yep, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts is not Google Play anymore, but mostly Spotify is where you can find us. It's easier that way.
Yeah, so if you're not listening through us from there, you could always check us out at our YouTube channel at the Infinite Ammo Syndicate, and look forward to future podcasts and other content from us.
We will see you guys later. Don't get abducted by Anna, please.
Yeah.